guys, welcome to another episode of Creeps, Creatures, and Haunts. Oh my. In this episode, it's going to be a bit of a special episode. We are doing our first interview. His name is Maximus, and he is a haunt actor at Dent Schoolhouse.
You may know him actually as the Pumpkin Smasher at Dent. He is one of the queue line actors, and he's been working there for quite a few years, but we're really excited to talk to him about his experiences in the haunt industry and what's it like to be an actor.
And the building may or may not also have its own paranormal history, so if you're interested in that, if you're interested in any of these things, I think this will be a very entertaining episode for you.
For sure.
But that being said, I guess we will just go ahead and get right into the interview. So now we have our special guest with us, Maximus here. If you would just like to kind of introduce yourself, kind of just give us a little synopsis for the viewers.
I'm Maximus. I am an actor at the Dent Schoolhouse in Cincinnati, Ohio. I also operate a home haunt called Fright on Fountain in Springfield, Ohio. I am involved with the Ohio Haunters Association, and can almost even call me a haunt enthusiast. I just love the haunted house industry as a whole.
So pretty much all facets then.
Except makeup. I'm awful with makeup.
Right. Oh, I know. Yeah, I feel that there's a lot of things like... That's the trouble I've always had. I have these great ideas in my head, but actually making things happen. So,
yeah,
it's like I can see it, but then I'm like, I have to tell someone else, be like, well, you need to make it, though, because I can't actually do it.
Right. And I've sat in a chair for like up to 2 hours before getting my makeup done, but I couldn't tell you a thing of what they do or how they do it. It just somehow after a while, especially if they're doing prosthetics, I have a look. I'm just too ignorant to know anything about the creative process of makeup.
Right. So, I mean, I guess, like, how did you, because everyone has a very different, like, origin story, like, how did you get started in just the haunt industry in general? Because obviously you're very involved.
Well, I would say that I was kind of an off-the-grid haunter for a few years. Back in 2012, I was asked to put on a haunted backyard for my neighborhood in Springfield, Ohio. They had this idea where they wanted to shut off the street, make it to where people could walk across the street and be safe and everything. And we had everybody on their porch passing out candy. And we also had activities at the local church for people to do. And then they asked me to put on a yard haunt. So I did that. And I did that for about 3 years. And I loved it. And so I had to move to the Cincinnati area for a job. And at that point, I thought I want to maybe try a professional haunt. So I checked out all the websites of the haunts in the area, and I was very, very impressed with the Dent Schoolhouse's website and started learning about the story of Charlie the janitor. And that's how I got involved with the Dent Schoolhouse in 2015, and I've been acting there ever since. And then it just kind of built into that. Once you got involved with Dent, you started learning about conventions, and then you started going to conventions, and then all these different haunt associations start popping up, and then you get involved with them. And then you learned about things like Haunters Hangout. And so basically ever since 2015, especially, I've just been jumping into the rabbit hole of the haunt industry. So.
Right. And it is funny, like, how like things can start off as like a bit of a hobby, and then you kind of go down the rabbit hole, and it just becomes more of a lifestyle. And now me and Kim we're not haunters ourselves, but we go to a lot of haunted houses and stuff like that, so we see a lot of it, and we did that documentary, so I know how passionate haunters are, and it really does become, I would say, a lifestyle. I mean, would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I mean, it's there, I think lay people, as I may call them, sometimes we call them normal people, non-haunter people.
Like the muggles of the haunt world.
Well, they're like looking at me, and I'm posting, like, for example, it's like, hey, in February of last year, I got this mask, and people are like, well, what the hell is he doing in February with a mask like this? And, why is he doing that? But there's But it is true, in January, a bunch of us are in New Orleans for HauntCon. And then, a bunch of haunt owners are going to St. Louis in March. And then, all these other conventions are happening, and you're building throughout the entire year. It is definitely, I believe, a lifestyle, and it's a lifestyle that you can choose how far you get into it. You can be the person that shows up and just works your season and then you're done for the whole year, or you're a person that wants to be more involved and develop your character, or you can be a person that wants to do all that plus the build, or you want to be a person that does all that, tries to put on your own convention, be part of the build, develop your character, so on and so forth. It's it goes, I feel like the industry just goes so deep, and it keeps going the farther you want to go and farther you want to learn about it. And, your guys' documentary, I remember sitting and watching it and being like, I'm like, wow, these are some cool haunted houses,
Right.
And then I learned they were all in Ohio, and I'm like, what? I'm in the southwest corner at this point, and I'm just starting to work at Dent. I didn't even know about, other haunted houses quite yet in that sense. And then learn about your documentaries, like, man, there's just a big wide haunt world out there. And once I get a sense of that, I just start exploring, start learning, and love it.
And it is amazing because even as long as we've been going to places, you will find, like, randomly I'll find some places not even like maybe an hour away, and I'm like, never heard of it. We check it out and we're floored by it. And it's like, and you come to find out that it's been there for years. I mean, for one, we didn't actually get to go through it, but just for example, that place we ghost hunted at, it's only like an hour from us. And apparently they've been doing this for like 8 years or something like that now.
Yeah.
And it's like, never heard of it. Never.
Like we never heard of this place, and our friend recommended it. She's like, oh yeah, they do ghost hunts and they've been doing this haunted house, and we're like,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The biggest ones I think are like home haunts. Like the home haunters are very interesting because it's not like they advertise the home haunts necessarily. Right. Some do, but all of a sudden, I remember down in Cincinnati, I was at a Halloween. It wasn't a Halloween Express. It was like a smaller chain of Halloween shops that pop up, and they put out all the advertisements of haunts around here. And then there was this one little thing for something that was nearby, and I thought, well, I've never heard of this. So I go check it out. It's an amazing home haunt that the guy put inside of his garage, like a garage on the side of his house. I mean, it kind of did this weird like maze thing. It's a 2-car garage, but it was amazing. All the walls he put up, the sets, the fog, the lasers, the props. Never knew about it.
Right.
But if you keep looking, you find something like that. And since then, I found other home haunts. I'm just like, wow. Yeah. And sometimes I call them off the grid haunters. Like they're the type that aren't necessarily like interloped into a lot of that like Facebook groups and such like that, but they're there, and it's fun to find them.
Yeah, exactly. Because me and Kim did dabble a bit with that this year, mainly around the Parma area, because the Royal Scare is a big one. This was there last year, unfortunately. But there's a few others, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but they're on the video. But yeah, we just kind of like just found them, and we're like, well, that like way more than we expected, know. And I mean,
like the one was a full-fledged haunted house. Like he had people in there, and it was just in his backyard, and it was like it was actually really, really well done. Mm-hmm. Like got us quite a few times. We were like kind of surprised.
Yeah. I try to direct them to those haunt finder sites because I feel like, at least put yourself on some kind of directory so that I can go back and, follow up with you guys and everything, because I want to know what happens. And I love seeing the posts throughout the year. A guy in the haunt industry said, you should try to find every page you can and just like it. And I do. And I try, and then I see posts and I see, people getting excited for the season. So it's, I just love having that facet of, in my social media life of being like, oh, it's March, but yet this haunt is talking about this thing they're doing and this thing that they're doing. There's a haunt near me, Chainer's Field of Screams, near Sydney, Ohio, that was pretty involved in a mascot competition, and their mascot won. And they were up against like Lee's chicken mascot and stuff like that, and it was awesome.
Oh, that's really cool.
That is really cool. Yeah, I think the home hunts are awesome, and you know, actually, I didn't know. So there's so many things I want to talk to you about. But so you still currently are doing your own home hunt, even with all the other.
This last year we did not.
Okay.
The neighborhood decided to say, like, look, it's irresponsible to try to gather so many people onto our street without being able to have any proper protocols in place. And, you know, like, for example, me trying to enforce 6-foot distancing and people waiting in line to go into the home hunt, I didn't see how it was going to happen well, at least for me. So this year it didn't happen. Now, had COVID not happened, it probably would have happened. So yes, it's still going on. I still have a Facebook page for it. I'm still, you know, thinking about stuff to do throughout the off season to make it fun for the neighborhood.
So how do you run, because you act at the Dent Schoolhouse? So obviously not this year, but I'm assuming, you know, previous years. How do you both act in the Dent Schoolhouse but also run a home hunt?
So the home hunt only operates on trick or treat night.
Oh, okay.
And so in Springfield, Ohio, normally trick or treating has been on the Saturday before Halloween, where a lot of places do it like the 31st, but we've always done it the Saturday before. And I usually ask for that night off from Dent so that I can do the home hunt. Recently, they've tried to do it on the actual night of Halloween. So they've kind of flipped me around, but that actually works out okay, because if Halloween falls on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, I can just do my home hunt and it's not a problem. So I'm just building a little bit here and there throughout the year, you know, making a wall panel. But a lot of stuff happens the week before trick-or-treating. That's primarily where all the stuff goes up. And on the day of, you just kind of hope and pray that everybody says that they will come and actually come and act. And the last several times I've held it, I've had great turnout as far as actors go, and they've been amazing.
So, I definitely, that's good you had a turnout. That's like the biggest thing I think in any kind of like entertainment thing with haunted houses, and like just for us, for example, with the short films we've made, like actually hoping that someone shows up to do the thing they say, especially when a lot of this stuff is volunteer work. I don't know if Dent pays or not, but a lot of haunted houses, it's more of just a volunteer type of thing. I know a lot of the bigger ones have at least some kind of incentive to do so, but I always wondered like how some of these places just, this is like a faith-based system, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. It is true. And I think that there's been like, I don't know, 20 different debates on Hunters Hangout about it, you know, paid versus unpaid. And, you know, I feel like I am lucky to be a paid actor and I do enjoy it. But, you know, I also think back to when I get paid, I usually forget that I get paid, because it's just so difficult and you're so tired after it all, to where, you know, it's like you keep going back to it, but you still love it. And you know, even if they didn't pay me, I'd still do it. But it's so much fun.
I don't know if I've ever talked to, now maybe the owners obviously, but like, you know, like an actual haunt actor that is doing it for the money. I don't know if I've ever talked to someone that's their main incentive. I mean, it's nice that you have that, but like it's too much work to just be doing it for generally the little amount of money that the places can give. And
if they're doing it for the money, I feel like they're only going to do it up in September, and then they won't make it much longer.
Yeah, I 100% agree, because I mean, I actually did act in a thing a long time ago when I was a kid. It was just a haunted hayride that was local, and just that, God, you know, I mean, because you don't know what the weather's going to be like, and there was some guy that basically had just went through the woods, and we were all terrified because we didn't know if he was going to try and get us or not, you know? And like, I mean, that was just when I was a kid. I can only imagine a place that has the throughput like Dent. And I guess that leads into a question, too, you know, like, what are some fun customer interactions that you've had?
I've been a queue line actor for the last 3 years, which is an actor that's out front interacting with the crowd, trying to get them, you know, either excited for what they're going into next, or just entertaining them as they wait. The last 3 years have been a lot of fun. I've been able to take the Pumpkin Smasher character and kind of just have fun with him. This year was a little bit weird, because the first 2 years he got into the habit of taking people's cell phones, getting onto their Snapchat, and making a video challenging all their friends, or just making like a funny video where you scare like scare them with their own cell phone, interacting with them. So that's been kind of fun. But then you send it to like all their friends, and then all their friends eventually come up to me and they're like, "Look, you sent me this video. Remember Ben?" I'm like, Ben? Who's Ben?
Right.
Ben must
Yeah,
have been
how
the
would
kid
you-
that was here the night before.
Yeah, like that's kind of funny though. Yeah, that's
And then they come back like the year after. "Remember me? You took a video on my phone." Like, yeah, sure. I totally remember
totally
you.
remember you out of the hundreds of people, that were there. Yeah.
So that's a very fun part of the interaction. I would say that my favorite interaction has been with was with a 5-year-old kid named Gabe. Gabe met me at a fireworks show in Cincinnati. We were advertising Dent at this fireworks show in Cincinnati, like passing out coupons, that kind of stuff. 5-year-old kid was scared of me, and I was in character.
Right, that's fair.
And he, but throughout the day, we were there the whole day from like 10 in the morning until the fireworks show at night. And this is in the summer. So, I mean, it was a long day, but throughout the day, he was getting more and more brave. He'd kind of come up to me, and then, eventually came to the point where he just runs straight up to me like, "I'm not scared," and then ran away. And we kind of did this back and forth like several times that day. And, he was just having a blast, loving it. Eventually he got brave enough to where he was just around me constantly. We took photos together. And then he was just too young. He never came for the actual show. But the Dent Schoolhouse does a lights on tour on a Sunday, like I think it's the last Sunday of October. And that's when kids can come in costume, do a little trick-or-treating, go through the haunt without any actors or any air cannons and such going off. They can actually just see the place and kind of get them like, okay, this is what it looks like, cool. And kind of like bringing up the next generation of haunters. He came to that event and he brought me a pumpkin to smash. So but I knew he was coming. So he gave me a pumpkin to smash, and I gave him a hammer that was painted orange and with the face on it, similar to Pumpkin Smasher's hammer. And I gave it to him for that event. So, and Gabe, he's old, he's a little bit older now, but that's just one of my favorite interactions, because the kid, he apparently talked about his interactions with Pumpkin Smasher for that whole season.
That's cool.
And you're just trying to be a haunt actor, but this was a special moment for that kid, and that meant a lot to me as well.
And I feel like, and I'm sure, and this is going to lead to the next question, the characters almost become like a split, almost like a second personality for a lot of the haunt actors I know. So like the character that you have is the Pumpkin Smasher. Now, is that something you created, or is it something that was kind of like, this is the character you need to be? How did that how'd that come about?
So at Dent, we are assigned our characters.
Okay.
Now, there are circumstances like when I was in the kitchen back in 2016, I was, made to be the chef, and the chef has his scene and all that kind of stuff. From there, I have to develop the character, but I'm still assigned the chef. Pumpkin Smasher is the Dent Schoolhouse's creation. It's just up to me to try to bring him to life. Yeah, okay. And I've been very lucky to do that for the last 3 years. And that be the case with with pretty much all the positions there. There's a few exceptions, but for the most part, you are assigned your role. You are assigned your costume, and you have to bring it back to life. And I have to continuously try to do my best at that, because if any time I'm not doing what I'm supposed to, I can get pulled and be made to do something else. So, but being Smasher for the last 3 years, I've had to do a lot to, as far as like develop how he acts, what he does. Terry has been working with me a lot over the years with Pumpkin Smasher, and really helped me bring him back. So Pumpkin Smasher is kind of a split personality, but the way I do it is that he is me, but amplified. Okay. Like his need for attention is like mega amplified. His arrogance is amplified. So I take some things from me, and I just have to times it by 10, and then he gets to be, and that's how he comes to life.
Here's a curious question. This is actually just something that I was thinking of that I'm curious. Every time I've been there, you're really good at it, and the janitor, how close you get to people with your, quote unquote weapons is so freaky to me, especially just not even when it happens to me, but watching it happen to other people, it actually makes my butthole pucker. I'm like, like, what kind of practice do you do to like get to the point where you're not just clocking people, you know, because you get close.
Yeah. Literally what happened was Terry stood. We went out. This was during build time, and Terry stood out in the front area, and I had the hammer, and I just had to take whacks at him, and
Okay.
that's pretty much how I learned to do it. And because there are times when you will take a swing at someone, and like if you take a swing and you leave it there, it seems to me to not always have the same reaction as like you take the swing but then pull back. Like that seems to have a bigger pop on them for some reason, and I don't know what the psychology is behind that. But oftentimes as Pumpkin Smasher, I'll forget that, take a swing, leave it, but thank goodness there's a face on it, and I'm like, look, he's smiling at you.
Right.
But that's how I practiced it, and it's gauging the distance, knowing where to hold the handle, getting comfortable with it. Charlie this year, man, that actor, shout out to Jonah, he was in the back in the break area. I saw him practicing nonstop with that thing. Like he was trying to figure out how to do it, and like everybody's trying to like get in their last bathroom breaks and doing everything they need to do to get ready for the night. He's practicing with the wrench, and so he was phenomenal this season. I felt like he even got our intensity award because,
yeah,
like as a character that cannot talk, he was very intense with the wrench. And I think you guys came. You guys came early on in the season, I think.
I don't remember when we came exactly. It wasn't super early. I think it was like midway, I believe. I think it was like mid-October.
By the end of it, he's just all over the place. Like he was becoming more comfortable with the character. Yeah. So it's practicing because they don't just hand a weapon to someone and say, hey, shove it in somebody's face. They want to see that you're not going to hurt people.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Right, yeah. I just always find that that's kind of interesting, like the kind of back workings of that. All right. The next thing that I'm going to ask, of course, we can't not ask about it. How was this year just in general? Like, everything's had to adapt so much. And I'm sure a lot of people are interested in the haunt industry. How, what kind of thought process and what kind of things did you guys have to do to basically, even be allowed to open, essentially?
It was painstaking, I think, as far as because we always do a training. Like it's usually a 2-day training. We go over acting techniques. We go over safety procedures, fire drills. We even have to show that we can operate a fire extinguisher before we can even be allowed to act. There's a lot of training that normally goes into this. So figuring out how to do all that electronically remotely was a challenge. Figuring out getting people who have come every single year used to COVID Dent.
Right.
And I feel like Dent leaned into it. They were putting out promotions with Charlie and the Mask from the beginning, and so they were they just kind of said, all right, this is what we have to do. Also, we have to, some of you that are acting, some nights you're just going to have to be out there with 6-foot length of PVC pipe and separate the crowd. You must make them separate. Which, that was an interesting task, I think, for those that had to. They were called the COVID police, so that was interesting to see done.
I think that's what
for me. For me as an actor, so the character that I portray has a full silicone mask. It goes down to here, and it's heavy by itself.
Yeah.
So, but there's a mouth opening, and because there's a mouth opening, I had to wear another mask. So, at the beginning of the season, I had a mask on underneath the silicone mask.
Okay.
And after a few weekends, I just decided, like, I can't do it. There was a few reasons for it. One, the mask would get wet, and once the mask is wet and you breathe, it more or less just sucks into you, and like it's really hard to breathe at that point. Sure. The other thing was nobody in the crowd believed that I was wearing a mask.
Yeah.
first of all, like silicone masks in general, they're made to look real. So not everybody is aware that I'm wearing a mask. So they're wondering, where's my COVID mask? So there came a point where I'm like, you know what? Forget it. I really need to wear one of these things on the outside. It'll make it easier for the customers because we're forcing the customers to wear a mask. We said, to be on the property, you have to wear a mask. So they're like, well, I'm wearing a mask. Why is that guy not? So I ended up wearing a mask on the outside for the second half of the season. So that, you have to play into that. And you, as an actor, you also had to project a lot more because you now have another barrier in front of your mouth. So, we were taught, look, you have to project. You have to, the mask is going to muffle you a little bit. So, make yourself louder because there's background music going on. There's air cannons going off. There's machines moving. There's pneumatics going off. There's a lot of noise. You have to make yourself heard, which is a good tactic to do otherwise, even without the masks. But with the masks, it had to be even more so. So there was a lot of challenges, I think, going into it. And, it was also difficult because we weren't allowed to kind of hang out afterwards. We had to, turn in our costumes. The costumes had to be washed every single night. And we couldn't stay on the property because there's no way to have that many actors in one space without, getting too close or breaking COVID guidelines. So that kind of, I think, impacted the social aspect of the season in a way. So, there's an important camaraderie aspect of, being a part of your specific haunted house haunt family. So there was just so many aspects of it that got impacted by this season. And I just, hopefully that described a few of them.
No, it definitely. And I mean, like, as an industry, it has to be one of the, it is one of the most difficult things because, I mean, literally the actor's job up until this year, I guess, is to get close to people and scream at them a lot and like touch or, or like breathe on them. And now like there's all of these things you can't, we still went to a few, not as many as you used to, but as we do in previous years, but Dent's was pretty good. There wasn't too much I felt like was lacking of it as far as like with the COVID procedures. There were some that were affected more than others because a lot of it was out of their controls. Like, for example, Mansfield, they weren't told to like the last minute. And so like half the haunt wasn't there. So, I mean, I was just happy that we got some open, that we got at least what we got because we weren't sure. It's been a crazy year.
People were happy for that, and I think those that did open were probably very happy with the turnout in general as far as the attendance numbers with the crowds. And I feel like that's sort of like a special award that the haunts could get. Look, you had to do so much to open the state. Normally you have the fire marshals, the building inspectors, electricians. Everybody has to sign off. Now it's like everybody felt like they had to get the health department to sign off.
Right.
Not just if you were serving food, but are you keeping your customers safe from COVID? And there was a lot that went to that. And talking with many owners this year, the fact that they opened but the people came. And I feel like that was a special kind of like reward for all that effort.
Right, exactly. And I think that's something, there's two things. I think that's something a lot of people do not realize is the crazy, and I didn't know it until we filmed that documentary, the crazy amount of things that they make haunted houses do for safety protocols, such as like fire safety and stuff, and everything has to be fire retardant and all of that, and just like how many emergency exits there has to be. Like, people don't know the background stuff, and that's really crazy. And the second part, because you had mentioned about the crowds, the haunts we went to this year, I have never seen haunts as busy as they were this year. And I'm assuming it's because, people wanted that escape. It was like one thing that they could actually go do, and it was, and so many haunts I know kind of got overwhelmed because they just weren't expecting it.
No, they weren't, but the amazing thing was seeing how they all adapted as the season went on. Like, talking with a few owners, they were like, well, this isn't what we were expecting, but this is how we're adjusting. This is what we're going to do differently. And some owners even said, look, the way that this turned out this season, like, for example, with some of the time ticketing, some of them are just going to incorporate it going forward with or without COVID because they felt like in a weird way it made it a better show. Yeah. Because if people are showing up at 7:30 but waiting 3 hours to get in, they don't want that necessarily. Right. And it's been interesting, and I feel like that shows the resiliency of a lot of of the haunt industry and the haunt owners and the haunted houses that say, look, COVID was thrown at us. We had to deal with that. We got to open. Then the crowds came like crazy, so we had to adjust security. We had to adjust ticket buying, but they did it. And I feel like they did it fairly well, as far as I can tell. I did visit a bunch at the beginning of the season. I talked with several afterwards. So it was really nice to, see that they took the challenge and met it head on.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think there is actually a little bit to learn too, because like you were saying with the time ticketing, I really actually like that aspect, and I'm hoping
Yeah.
that is something that does continue. And I'm also hoping that because of like so many more people, I think, kind of going to haunts this year, that 2021, long as we're in a better place by the fall or whatever, that I really think it's going to be a record year for a lot of haunts. I really do. I really think this year is going to just blow up, and that's kind of exciting because a lot of haunts that actually didn't get to open, I'm also excited about because I think they're going to even put that much more effort. And as a haunt enthusiast myself, I'm really excited just to see what people have done,
Yeah.
in that time. So kind of moving somewhere else here, talking a little bit about Dent itself. I guess I want to ask, if you want to tell us like maybe a little bit of the history of that building. I don't know if people actually know. Like I'm talking like its actual like real history because I know there's some like spooky stuff there. If you kind of want to, you have a
Like
little
as far
color
as
there.
the building itself.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was a school that was open in the 1800s, and at the time it was actually half of what you see now. And then there was an addition built on in the early, I think it was the early 1900s, and it was Public District Number 12, school building, Public District Number 12 for Cincinnati, and it was K through 12. They had all the grades there, and according to what Bud has said, at the time, it was actually considered one of the high-end schools. I mean, as far as teachers and the desks and everything they had. But as the legend goes, the children started disappearing in the 40s and 50s, and that's when they discovered that the bodies of the missing children were actually in the basement, having been killed by Charlie the janitor. And around the 50s is when that school building closed down. Since that time, the building was used for various different things. There was the Suburban Machine Company, which you can still see that logo on the front of the building. It's like it's still there in the brick. You see that, but it's from those businesses that came in and used the building that you see the additional buildings in the back, like the warehouses and such. That makes the haunt longer than what you initially think when you come and see, the schoolhouse facade.
Yeah, first time I went through that surprised me a little. Yeah.
It was either the late 80s, I think, when the Boy Scouts moved in and did a Boy Scout haunt. And it was either late 80s or 90s. I'm not entirely sure, but there was a Boy Scout haunt that was there. And the current owners took over in 2005. And that's when it got renamed from the Haunted House to the Dent Schoolhouse. And the story of Charlie Janitor came back to life, and that's where we are now, 15 years later now.
Jeez. So like as far as like actual supernatural stuff, have you ever had any like weird things go on, you personally?
Yes, there was security footage once of there was an orb. Now, it's not an orb that just kind of appears and disappears. This thing was there, and this thing went around. At the time, it was the cafeteria, and it just played around in it. It wasn't just like there in the screen kind of floating. It was actually going up and down a counter. It went to the railings, moved around, went into the wall, disappeared, came back in through the wall. This is about a 5-minute video. And we're just watching it and like, what is happening? What is this? There have been actors who get placed inside of walls that interact with, they swear that somebody's there with them. They talk about being touched, grabbed, all kinds of stuff, but they're actually the only one in that section of the hallway where they are. We've had people, we've lost some actors and actresses before to being in a room and they swear something's happening, like not just the props or the show that's being put on. They feel like something's there and messing with them and talking to them, and so they freak out, and some of them have quit. So there's countless stories. If I had the entire staff here with me, stories upon stories upon stories, even as ridiculous as Alex Dickey and his interaction with a haunted toilet brush. I kid you not. He got attacked by a haunted toilet brush in that building before. So.
Oh my god! You did get a hold of this person and have him message me for the spooky scary time thing that we do. I want the haunted toilet brush story.
I will tell him to message you.
That's perfect. And that'll just lead into so what now talking about the actual production of it. What would you say? And I kind of know in my mind, but I'm going to have you say what makes Dent unique as opposed to all of the other haunted houses. What kind of fills its niche?
What makes Dent unique, in my opinion, is, first of all, it has a fantastic story with it. Mm-hmm. But to me, it's really the scenes, I feel like, is sort of the
there's scenes in there.
the scenes, the sets, the building, the whole thing, to me, is what makes it Dent. I always even thought before the season started, let's say COVID restrictions would have gone so far as to say you can't have any actors.
Right. Yep.
In my mind, I thought, okay, fine. Dent, even just a walkthrough, I think, is an amazing show. It's just beautiful. It's so beautiful. I love just being there and just, walking through the scenes and looking at it and seeing it, and being part of the build crew. I've done this and that and a few other things. Not nowhere near. I don't do a lot, but I've done a few things. But the whole thing is just beautiful, and in a way, it actually makes it harder on me as an actor, because people sometimes go through and they're just so into the scenes, and I mean, it's just so amazing in there. And then we actors, especially if it's a haunter, the haunter is walking through, if they're from another haunt and they're visiting, they'll walk through and come out, wow, this is cool. And in my first year, I remember jumping out at a group of other haunters, and they were just kind of yeah, whatever, let's look at this. because it's the work that Bud and Josh and Chuck do on that building. It's just beautiful. It really it's really beautiful. So I would say that would be, I think, what sets it apart.
No, I definitely agree, and I love that you use the word beautiful, because I use that word when I do our haunt reviews, and I always feel weird because I feel a GP, a general public person that's just kind of walking through, and just terrified. They might not look at something and think the word beautiful.
Yeah.
But someone like me or you, it's just the detail. It's there's there's a part where you push yourself through children bodies. But look at the detail on them,
Yes. No, it's because even on those children's bodies, before the season even starts, we have to go through and make sure that the blood is glossy enough on each of those children. It's a specific detail. They are so... taken away from the bad part of that, but there are dead children there, so we have to. The blood has to be glossy on everything, right. And it's just part of that preseason opening procedure.
And that's just some of the things that go through my mind. You go through and you look at these really messed up things, but then you also for someone like me on the bottom, someone had to consciously make this thing,
right.
Make this messed up, and this year it was turned off, but the freaking part where you have to push your way through the meat tunnel thing.
Oh yeah, the half claustrophobia thing. Yeah.
That suffered the COVID restrictions, but that is something that it's also beautiful.
Yes.
I will keep using that word because that is what it is.
And I do agree. And that's the other thing I do like about Dent is that it's darker than a lot of other haunted houses, and you might not instantly expect it. Because I've been to other haunts, for example, the Akron Haunted Schoolhouse and the Laboratory, that do the school haunt theme, but Dent is different. No other place do you go in a dungeon, and just how or the basement, however you want to call it, I'm sorry, but just how that area is done is weird, and it's cool. So
Mhm.
yes, I do. There's a lot of scenes I've never seen anywhere else. And if you haven't been to Dent and you're watching this or listening to this, I highly recommend that you do check it out. Um, so another thing, so I'll ask, you're wearing the shirt, the Ohio Haunters Association, if you kind of want to
Mm.
explain a little bit about that.
Yeah, the Ohio Horror Association I learned about a few years ago. I heard an advertisement on the Big Scary Show, and basically it's an organization that exists to for people in Ohio, whether you're a haunt owner, home haunter, actor, enthusiast, anything, you can go onto that page and you can ask questions, you can share stuff, you can sell stuff if you want. It's people oftentimes sometimes ask advice on stuff, and there's people in the haunt industry in Ohio that will respond, talk to you about that. There are some paranormal people on there too, so it exists to promote the haunt industry. This year, that was my goal. I didn't know there was going to be a big turnout for haunted houses this year. Nobody did. I mean, I haven't found someone that actually predicted it, but maybe somebody did. So I did a whole video series where I tried to say, okay, in this area, these haunted houses are opening, and through this area, this haunted house is opening. And Jason was supportive of me in doing that. So we exist to just try to promote the haunt world. We haven't been able to do in-person meetings in a while. The association was also part of putting on the Ohio Halloween and Haunters Convention, which we're still trying to see what's going to happen for 2021. Right. So a great association I've been a part of, and through it, I've been able to connect with that haunt industry that I've come to love so much by making connections I normally would not have.
Yeah, and I will say, because I'm a part of a few different of those, and the Ohio Haunters is definitely one of the better communities. It's I like that community quite a bit from the interactions, that I have. And so you basically run that then, right?
No, that is Jason's.
Oh, it's mainly Jason.
That's Jason's baby.
Okay.
Jason and Katie. I came on getting involved with him. I think it was about 3 years ago now, and I think Jason just saw I was really enthusiastic about the whole thing, so he brought me on to be part of their board, as we call it, and he also brought me on to be part of that planning committee that did the Ohio Halloween and Haunters Convention. So I definitely don't run it. I would just say that I like doing public relations type things.
Because you definitely see because I see you post a lot on there and stuff. I guess when I think about it, it makes me kind of think of you, I guess. So that's why I wasn't sure, if you, so you don't run it, but you're kind of almost sort of the face of it in a little bit of a way, I suppose.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, I do approve people to be in it, I guess. Right. So yeah, find the Facebook page, Ohio Haunters Association,
for sure.
And I'll prove you.
And I'll have you send me the links to that and all of your stuff, and I'll put them in the show notes for this as well. So if you're a viewer and listening to it, make sure to check that out.
Absolutely.
But yeah, and as you were saying, we're not going to talk about it much because, again, as me and you talked previously, we don't know if it's happening. But I am really excited because I haven't actually got to go to the gathering. What exactly this the Ohio Haunters Association? What is it called?
The Ohio Halloween and Haunters Convention.
Oh, just the convention, yeah. Because Kim got to go to it the first year, which would have been 2019, right? Was that the first year?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
That was when we started.
Yeah, but then obviously last year we couldn't. But.
Yeah, 2018 is when we learned that Midwest Haunters Convention was moving to Chicago, which we felt like was leaving a hole in Ohio. So that's where the idea for that convention came up, and putting it on at the Mansfield Reformatory where Blood Prison is was just, to me, a perfect match in my opinion. It's such a cool
really
place.
Is. Come on.
We don't know exactly what's happening with this year. Trans World just recently announced that they were moving to May, which is when the Ohio Halloween and Haunters Convention would typically happen. So we're still trying to see what's happening, and there's several things that happen. The state mandates with COVID, the city of Mansfield and their mandates, Richland County. The building itself has their own governing body, so everybody has to give the green light for it, and we'll see what happens. But follow the Ohio Halloween and Haunters Convention Facebook page, and updates will be posted about what's happening this year.
Yep.
As well as some other stuff. So check that out.
Yeah, for sure, because we were really hoping it does, because we would like to be there as well. But it's kind of up to the hands of greater people, I suppose, if that will go through. So fingers and toes crossed for that one. But yeah, I mean, we've been asking you a lot of questions. Did you have anything else that you want to talk about or say?
I just wanted to say that I really appreciate everybody that put their all into this last season.
Yeah, sure.
Especially my fellow actors at Dent. You guys really got us through this season. And I really wanted to thank Nick and Panny for letting me stay with them during the season, because I live kind of far away from them, but I stay there over the weekend. Margaret and Terry for all their support, Paige and Zach and Alex and Kaylee for being awesome friends, as well as Melanie, and to Bud, Josh, and Chuck for having such an amazing haunt that we can all work at.
Right.
And I look forward to hopefully putting Fright on Fountain back on for this coming season, my home haunt. And just keep your eye out there for additional content that may be coming through the Haunted Attractions Network and through anyone else. And it's been quite a year, but now that we're in 2021, let's see what happens and hope for the best, but do it safe.
Right, exactly. If that's one thing we can have in 2021, it is hope. We can have hope. But yes, and thank you, so much for joining us for this. And hopefully I feel like this was a very interesting conversation. There's a lot of fun and things that you've bestowed upon us. So hopefully all of you enjoyed it as much as we have. Yeah. All right, well, thank you guys very much for watching this episode of Creeps, Creatures, and Haunts All My. I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Maximus as much as we did. I thought it was very informative.
Oh, yeah.
Very interesting, some of the stuff he had said. If you're listening to this and you are a haunter or, in the field anyway, feel free to message us. Like I said, there's many ways. We have our Facebook link. You can direct message us through there. That's how we were actually talking to him, was through Facebook Messenger. You can email us, whatever you would like, and let us know, and we can set up a time to interview you so you can, promote and talk about your haunt or your work or whatever that it is that you do. Also, make sure to subscribe and like this video if you're watching it that way, or subscribe to the podcast if you're just listening so you don't miss an episode. There's a new episode every Friday at 7 p.m. on YouTube, and the podcasts are loaded up at midnight, so if you're subscribed, you will have them ready in the morning for your commute.
Yay!
That being said, thank you guys very much for watching and listening, and we will see you guys in the next episode.
Later.